Hello, everybody. It's Friday night here in Virginia Beach. I'm out on the porch of the Sandcastle Hotel, having a drink. Going to have a cigar first for our Zoom meetings. I may just move them to Friday nights so I can drink. Well, and smoke, you know. So, welcome to all my brothers from Australia. So, who do we have so far? We got Graham, Linz, Brendan, I know. I got to make up a list of everybody who's participating. 7:56. We're ready for this. Get all this stuff ready here. Okay, so for my speakers, for my panel, Graham, Brendan, I don't recall who all I invited. Linz, I know. Robert Wrench. Now you're from Virginia, aren't you?
Yes, I'm Cherrydale 42.
That's what I thought. Good to have you with us. Let's see. Michael Mayer, where are you hail from?
I am from Arlington, Sentinel Glebe, Lodge 81.
Excellent. Okay, and Rick is and Tom. Tom Sheehan, are you one of my panelists?
No,
Sorry.
I'm just
Okay.
received the letter to join.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so far I have Graham, Brendan, and Linz from the group. Sorry, I'm working off my laptop. Normally I got my computer and I got two screens and I have more surface area to put things and be able to look at things. So I'm kind of making do with the little bitty screen here. So how you doing today, Brendan? Good to see you.
I'm good.
All right. I see you still have your nuclear fallout shelter as your background. That's good.
Yep. The Rushton Triangular Lodge.
Yes. Oh. Okay. All right. And Pete is here. My lovely co-host Brian Smith cannot be here. He apparently has social activities beyond Mason, which is, just beyond offensive, but we're going to let it go. Apparently he has parties at his house, and it's 1 a.m. in the UK right now. So I totally understand. He says the party would still be going strong at that point, and he's the host, so he can't leave. I guess having people in person is a little more important than attending a Zoom meeting, but we can always debate that. So he will not be joining us. Thankfully, Paul is filling in as my lovely co-host. I don't know who filled in when Ed McMahon wasn't there. I don't remember. My alternate head guy. So good to see you all here. I'm in Virginia Beach. I'm actually at the beach. I'll go and show you all. Let's see, where's my? Let's see me. You might be here. Look. Second. Zero. Here. Okay. Show me. Okay. There we go. Okay. So this is trying to look at there we go. Okay, so that's the 14th Street Pier at the ocean front. And here, there you go. You can't see it through the cloud of smoke, but that is something in the water down around First Avenue down at the ocean, at the far end of the ocean front at Rudy Inlet. And we're staying at the lovely Sandcastle Hotel. And I had to run out at 5:30, go home, feed the pig and the dog, and try and get back here by 8. So I somehow managed to do that. So let me just get my camera straight. Sit back and do this. I hope y'all can hear me over the surf and all that. Everybody hear me all right?
Sure.
Yep. Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay. So we're doing things a little bit differently. For everyone who hasn't figured it out, we got a little bit here. Richard. Okay, I think Richard's on my list. For those who haven't figured it out, we are meeting on Friday night because this is a panel discussion with all of my dear brothers down under in Australia. And it's currently 8, 9, or 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday for them. So I want to make it as easy as possible for our panelists to participate. And that means having it on Friday. So hopefully a couple of you brothers out there who complain about not being able to attend at 7 or 8 in the morning, whatever, wherever you are, because we meet on Saturday mornings, hopefully they will show up here. And we may change it from time to time. I don't. So if you bear with me, I'm going to get my cigar set up. None of this will go on to YouTube, so y'all can say whatever you want right now. So let's see. Richard and from Australia. You're one of my panelists, I presume?
Richard Mum. Morning, Richard.
Hi, Richard. Let's see. Alan, brother Alan is driving, I assume. Or are you? No, are you driving now, Alan? Or are you actually at home?
They're all on mute this morning.
Yeah.
Okay, parked in.
You're parked. You're on the road, though? I mean,
Yes,
okay. Good to have you here. I don't know what this looks like. I'll have to look at the camera later and see how this all looks, but
You were wondering how some of Northern Virginia brothers got into this. The invite was forwarded to me by Alvaro Tarico, who is a member of Arlington Centennial Glebe 81. So I thought it
yes.
sounded interesting.
Oh, I appreciate him forwarding it. I hope he joins us. I think he has to be, he was either on the mailing list or, no, someone else has to be on the mailing list that he forwarded to, I think. So I appreciate it. If he's here, point him out. Thank you. But I appreciate all my Virginia brothers coming here. It's a funny thing. This is hosted by Virginia Research Lodge, of course, and I get very few Virginia Masons here. I get guys from all over the country. I don't have any lights out here, so I don't know how well it's going to look. I may go to darkness soon. I don't know what's going to happen, so we'll see. I may just sit here in the dark and just see my cigar going. But it's nice to be outside. I tried a couple weeks ago at one of our meetings to set up outside and set up my laptop and make sure that you could see me on the camera so it'd be clear. Well, I have to manage the board and the Zoom and, the Word document, whatever else I got going on. And so I needed to see if I could see the board and you could see me. I could see me just fine at 9 o'clock in the morning, but it was so dang bright, I couldn't see the computer screen no matter what I did. So I couldn't do it if I had to sit in the dark. So I've not been able to have this outside yet because it's in the daytime. So this should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to this for a while. So this should be great. Let's make sure I've got everything here set up here. Oh, I have an online event starting soon. Yeah, okay. All right. And I see Graham posted it in our Zoom. Okay. Yep. All right. So hopefully everybody is here. We'll give everyone a few more minutes. We're just after 8. Brother Rick, Brother Jonathan, good to have you. I saw Pete. There's Pete. Hey, Pete Gordon, how you doing? Our lovely, gracious secretary from Virginia Research.
doing great.
All right. Appreciate you coming out on a Friday night. By the way, we are drinking, damn, what's the name of it? Wait, hold on. I should start getting product placement. We are drinking, there it is, Breckenridge bourbon whiskey from Colorado. It's actually quite good. I'm a Maker's Mark kind of guy, but I found this and tried it. It's really good. So I'm enjoying my bourbon. I hope you all enjoy a libation where you are. I would say in Australia, y'all could enjoy some Bloody Marys this morning, but whatever suits the movies about coffees. So, okay, enough kidding around. Is that 8? Good evening and good morning to Australia. My name is Chris Douglas. This is Virginia Research Lodge's Zoom meeting, our unstated meeting on April the 28th and 29th. today's topic is Brothers Down Under, where I'm going to be talking with panelists from Australia. Let me open up my Word document. Right. Sorry. Care about that. So I need to get one. I think my paper out here. There we are. Okay, now I got the right Word document. Close up the things I don't need. Okay. Sorry, like I said, I got a teeny tiny little laptop I'm looking off this. There's the chat. Let me open up the chat. I don't know how I'm going to do this with my little laptop and read the Word doc, but I'm going to do my best. So bear with me as I figure out how I am doing all of this. Everybody, okay. Good here. Yes, Jonathan, you're going to the one-day conferral. Good for you. And yes, please have a drink of your choice out there.
There's a good starting question. What's a one-day referral?
Oh, yes. A one-day conferral is something, well, okay, I'll be nice. I think they're a terrible idea, but they are having them. In Virginia, about every 3 years, the Grandmaster, if he wants, has a one-day conferral, which means all of the lodges are expected to bring candidates. Our benevolent Grandmaster has asked, he's trying to bring in, I think, 600 new Masons this year in Virginia. And to do that, we're having a one-day conferral at several locations within the state. So you show up, about 100 guys show up, 50 or so candidates, however many you got, and you have all 3 degrees are conferred over the course of from like 8 in the morning to like 1 in the afternoon, one right after the other. All of the candidates are sitting on the sidelines. There's one representative for the whole class, and then they all have a mentor sitting there with them with a Bible so they can take the altar and take the obligations at their seats. But it's a one-day, 0 to 3, get your Master Mason's degree in one day thing. So that's tomorrow. I'm not participating because I'm down here at the beach, but that's what we're doing. So we can debate the merits of that another time.
We could.
I actually plan to have a panel discussion here, just sort of an open-ended thing, and get people to join it and just talk about things in masonry that are interesting. And I'm getting apps.
You're turning into an AI voice.
What's that?
You're turning into an AI voice.
Am I? What?
Yeah,
Oh, it's cleared up now.
Oh,
Yeah,
was
it's
I?
fine.
Oh, okay.
It may be the
Sorry.
noise cancellation that's kicking in.
Was I? Wait, did that sound like a banjo? Did that sound like Stephen Hawking?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Now let me know when I. All right. Oh, and yeah, Kevin, first time live due to work schedule. Good to have you with us then, Kevin, from Kentucky. Very good. Okay, so I'm going to go over the list of panelists again before we get started. I have Graham, I have Brendan, I have Linz, and I have Richard. Is there anyone else here who is from Australia who's on our panel? Anyone? I had 5 at least confirmed. Okay, well, we're going to go with the ones we have then. Okay. So, welcome to all of our brothers. Oh, yeah, I don't have my things. Well, I normally would put the links in the chat, but since I'm on this computer, I don't have my links set up. But normally I would post a link to our Facebook group and all like that. But you can contact me afterwards if you want to get in our Facebook group if you're not already. Let's do that. Okay, with no further ado, since we're 10 after, this is Brothers Down Under, and I'm just going to rotate through each one of you. And then if you want to add a brief comment on the last speaker, that's fine. But I prefer not to go at length, and please don't jump ahead and answer other questions because I already have a bunch of questions lined up. I'm hoping to get through all 3 pages of questions. So please do not be overly lengthy in your responses, if you don't mind, because I want to cover a lot of ground. So we'll start with Graham. And we'll start with the first question. How many Grand Lodges are there in Australia?
That's a good question. I believe there's 6 Grand Lodges in Australia.
Okay. And they're not related specific. It's kind of like America where every state is its own Grand Lodge. There's no grand, is there not Grand Australian kind of body that ties them together?
No, there's no national body. The 6 Grand Lodges. Brendan might be better to answer this question, but I believe there's 6 Grand Lodges relative to the relative states.
And you're in which one?
I'm a member of 2 Grand Lodges.
Okay. Well,
One's
just
New South Wales.
Uh-huh.
One's New South Wales and ACT. They're
Okay.
joined together.
All right. Brendan, how many lodges in your Grand Lodge?
Ooh, current estimate there's 200 and I think around 230.
Okay. Do you think that's typical across the board, or are they all roughly the same number of lodges?
No, it varies due to size of state and population. I mean, Victoria's the second most populous state in Australia. All the rest are a lot smaller in comparison.
Okay. All right, then. Linz, how is the Grand Master selected for your Grand Lodge?
That's a good question. I think Brendan can correct me if I'm wrong, because we're from the same jurisdiction, which is the United Grand Lodge Victoria. I think the Grand Master is effectively chosen by a panel of senior Freemasons, and will generally be the Deputy Grand Master the previous sitting period. Does that sound right, Brendan?
Is he voted for at all, or is he just chosen by a panel and say, here you Grand Master?
Chosen by a panel, no vote
Really?
by the members.
Interesting. And is that how long does he serve?
2 years.
2 years. And do they ever do more than 2 years, or 2?
We just had 1, 2, 3 because of COVID.
Right. Yeah. COVID. No, COVID breaks all. Okay. And Richard, who are the other? What are the other Grand Officers?
Oh, well,
Deputy Grand and all like that.
yeah, there's a deputy grand, an assistant Grand Master, and then Grand Wardens, and then the whole shebang all the way down.
Okay.
Down to Grand Pursuivant.
And how are they
So they might-
selected, Richard?
Oh, they're all appointed. They have appointment committees. And
Okay.
the Grand Master in South Australia Northern Territory is elected.
Oh,
And over the last 4 years, one year we had 3 candidates, another year we had 2. But that, until about 4 years ago, I think there'd only been about 2 elections in 125 years.
okay. All righty. And is it basically progressive, though, Richard? Like they advance like Grand Junior Deacon
Well,
or somebody?
the deputy is eligible to become the Grand Master, or anyone's eligible. But usually the deputy follows on, but not invariably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as a comparison in Virginia, I like to now. I'll say this, and y'all might correct me, but generally, I think Virginia is typical of the Preston Webb style American Rite, which is what it should be called, York Rite, which is what it really is, Grand Lodges of America, all the U.S. Grand Lodges. We're all very similar, and I think Virginia is typical. There's probably little minor changes. We elect a Grand Master, we have a deputy, and we have like Grand Junior Deacon on up, and then Secretary and Treasurer for years in this course, like a lodge. But they each get elected for 1 year. The Grand Master nominates a Grand Junior Deacon, the incoming one, and then there's typically not opposition. So it's like a 6-year line, but they each serve for 1 year. But they've always been elected. But who actually gets to get, since it is nominated by the Grand Master, it is a very select group. It's rare that a brother off the floor gets nominated for Grand Junior Deacon and actually wins against the Grand Master's choice. We'll put it that way. Brendan, are there districts within your Grand Lodge? How are your lodges organized?
Now, the important thing to remember in all of this is we vary quite distinctly from state to state. So
Yes,
if I say something, as soon as
Of
you
course.
cross over the border, it changes completely.
Right.
Here in Victoria, we have 17 districts.
Okay. And about how many lodges?
Around 20 or so in each one. And that will
Okay.
give you a figure of around 200 whatever
Yeah.
lodges.
Okay. And sorry, Grandma. Go ahead. Would you have more? Or
I was just going to say, and each one of those districts has an appointed district coordinator.
okay, like our district deputy mayors. Yeah. And we have the district deputies appointed by the Grand Master. He's actually nominated from the sorry, clicking around here. Questions are okay. Sorry. I'm moving things around so I can see your pictures and still get my questions here. The district deputy is typically nominated from each lodge gets a turn. So if there's 6 lodges there's now 9 in my district, usually around 6 is average, and each lodge gets a turn to nominate someone. Almost always everybody else concurs and the Grand Master accepts the nomination. Sometimes, and there's been several recently in our area, sometimes the Grand Master says, nope, not him, someone else. And recently, the guy was in for about 2 months. The Grand Master said, nope, you're not doing a good job, and replaced him. That's the first I've seen of that. Let's see. Linz. Is it Linz that, how I say it, just Linz or?
Yeah, it's Lindsay, or Lindsay's the proper name.
Lindsay?
Yeah,
Okay.
Lindsay.
All right.
Yeah.
How many, well, I guess I don't think this really applies. I don't think you all have provincial grandmasters because you're not like like England where you can. So we're going to skip those questions. Okay. Are your lodges called blue lodges?
Yeah, they are called blue lodges or craft lodges, and different appellations depending on the other orders that are worked.
Okay. Richard, how is the Worshipful Master selected for lodge?
Oh, well, the Worshipful Master, it's a progressive office, but we have an executive, in my particular lodge that I'm the secretary of, we have one meeting a year where it's like an annual general meeting. We discuss who the incoming officers are going to be. And sometimes a warden may not progress because he hasn't performed very well.
Oh, okay. But is he elected? Is there an election every year?
Yeah, there's an election every year. Actually, I'm a member of an Irish lodge as well. In my Irish lodge, every officer is elected. Whereas in the South Australian lodge I'm a member of, it's the master, the treasurer, and the tiler.
Ah, okay. All right. And
the rest are sort of progressive or appointments. You can be appointed, say, to be in a guard, and then you might progress up.
Okay, but then you have to actually be elected to be master.
Yes,
Well,
and the treasurer, and the treasurer, and the tiler.
Are those part of the progressive line? Or are they separate?
No, the treasurer and tiler are not, but all the others would be considered to be progressive. Yes.
Right. So,
if you're in a guard,
like the senior warden is the XO to the master, so he would be the one. You get appointed all the way up to senior warden, and then he gets elected master. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And do you have your secretaries? Are they appointed then?
No, the secretary is appointed, but it's hard to find someone to be appointed.
Okay. Well, that's true anywhere. Okay, very good. All righty. Graham, what are the qualifications to be an officer or to be worshipful master? Like, is there a warden certificate? Yeah.
Must have been a past warden, so that will be a junior warden or a senior warden in the lodge.
Right. But like a warden certificate, like a ritual proficiency, anything like that?
We don't have a proficiency as such. You just need to be a warden or like a past junior warden or senior warden in a lodge.
Interesting. Brenda, do you have the past masters? And is it part of being master of the lodge?
Yes, we do have past masters. We have an immediate past master who sits to the left of the master.
No,
In
I
theory.
don't. I mean the past master's degree that you have to be master. Anything like that?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for Virginia,
That originally came out so that you could join other orders, wasn't it, if you hadn't been the master of a lodge?
I know
the Royal Arch.
it's
the Royal
different everywhere. In Virginia, you must have the past master's degree in order to be elected. Before you can be elected junior warden, you must have received the past master's degree. Now, the past master's degree is part of the Royal Arch chapter. So if you join the chapter, you get the past master's degree as one of the 6 degrees. If not, we do what we call a provisional lodge of past masters, and the Royal Arch chapter in your area will confer that. But you just basically get the degree and you don't get seated in the chair and all like that. But it's very similar. And if you don't have a past master's degree, I'm not going to explain it, but you basically, you can ask questions to see if you can be master. But it's a requirement to be master. And you do have to have a warden certificate to be elected master. But
We
it's
have
very
the
kind of quirky. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have the installed master's degree.
Okay.
So when you're elected as the master, you're the master elect, and then the lodge will be called up to say the 3rd degree,
Right.
and then you'll take your obligation the 2nd degree, then you go up to the 3rd degree, and then the board of installed masters is held, and then you go through but it's only the master elect that goes through that degree.
Yeah. Okay. So it is basically the same thing, but it's the night of the installation, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay. I've heard of that. So that means now, so only past masters or installed past masters can sit in that section when he gets his degree. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
See, that honestly, I think that would be more fun. It just would make the annuals longer. And so you have the same requirement we do, but it's literally the night of his election. Because, like I said, we can get it if you join the Royal Arch anytime, or if you have to have that degree before you can be elected junior warden. So every senior deacon in your district, they go and ask them, if they're planning to be junior warden, well, you need to go and get this degree sometime this year. So, but it is a requirement. So that's interesting. So it's very similar.
And in some jurisdictions, we have a hollow square during that ceremony. The master is given the secrets inside the hollow square.
Okay.
And that's formed by sitting masters forming the square.
Very interesting. So it is quite similar. It's funny, the past master's degree, and I should probably do a paper on just the past master's degree, because honestly, every time I've asked one of my British brothers about the past master's degree, I get conflicting answers. Some say they don't have it, they've never had it, you don't know what you're talking about. Some say, like Richard just said, yes, but maybe it's called something slightly different, and you have to get it the night of your installation. But not every lodge in England does it. So it's kind of like chasing my tail. Like, well, do you have one or not? And I get different answers from people. So it's kind of funny. I always find that interesting. Okay, let's see. And if I, by the way, if I call you out of turn, don't feel bad. I'm trying to go in order here. Graham, in your lodge, how many members in your lodge? Is that typical of them?
In my lodge, there's 230.
Okay.
Typically, you'll get about 50 members turn up to a lodge meeting.
Oh, you get that many show up? Oh, okay. No, I mean, like, just overall size, or lodges vary from like 100 to 300. I mean, is it kind of any of them really big, or?
I'm a member of a lodge in Western Australia, Scottish Constitution Lodge, and they have about 100 members.
Okay.
And in the New South Wales Lodge that I'm a member, they have 200. 130 odd.
Okay, not out of, I would say a few years back, most Virginia lodges are under 200 now. My lodge is just under 200. We had like 300 some when I affiliated. At one time, some of the lodges in my district had 1,000 members, but that was like back in the 90s, and that's gone steadily down. But it's about typical. More lodges are down below 100, which surprised me because just a few years ago, if a lodge fell below 100, they were in danger of closing. But we seem to have several that hover around 100.
The majority of lodges in Victoria are under 100.
Okay, so you're not that different from us in that case, Brendan. What's the average age? You know, like for your lodge or for like Grand Lodge? Do you have a rough idea?
The average age demographic here in Victoria has dropped to about 67.
Okay, so that's about typical. Okay, Linz, is your lodge York Rite, Scottish Rite, some other what kind of rite does your lodge practice? And is it different? Like, are there varieties within your Grand Lodge, or how does that work?
We don't. I don't know that we actually practice the York Rite or the Scottish Rite in Victoria. It's just an ordinary craft lodge. I don't know that we have. We have the Mark Master Mason degree and the chapter and the Holy Royal Arch and the Knights Templar and so on. But I'm not sure that we call them the York Scottish Rite.
Okay, well, they're like well, we'll get to appended bodies, but so okay, so you're all, is there basically one? I thought someone mentioned like Scottish Constitution, didn't they? Do you have varieties of lodges in Australia that do things slightly different, like the emulation rite in England? Do you have lodges that are like that? Anybody?
We've got 3 in Victoria that are warranted to work different rituals.
Interesting.
One is a Filipino lodge that works Filipino ritual. One is a Scottish lodge that works the McBride ritual. And one is a ordinary craft lodge that works the RER ritual from Belgium.
Oh, very cool. Okay, but they're sanctioned. Your typical lodge has the same ritual as other craft lodges, but you have a few that the Grand Lodge gives them permission to have a different rite.
Yeah,
and you all can attend. You can go visit them and watch their degrees.
Yeah, they're considered a normal warranted Victorian lodge. They're just allowed to work this different ritual and actually initiate candidates through that ritual. But here we do have those other rites, but America's unique in that you've put them all into those 2 systems. So you've got the ancient accepted rite. We have that here, but it's just another rite. It's not all-encompassing like it is in the US. And then we have all the other orders, but we don't group them under the York Rite. We just have all those orders.
So you say you're very similar to England in that you have the Mark Master Mason and you have the Royal Arch and the Cryptic Masons. Okay, so
all of that stuff.
We've covered that before, yes, but they're all completely separate. Now, are they all like? Go ahead.
In New South Wales, we have what I would call a bastardised ritual. It's made up of the English, Irish, and Scottish constitutions, which was
call it bastardised.
Well, that's my term.
It's actually worked in a lodge in Canada, the New South Wales ritual.
That's okay. That's your way of interpreting it. My way is they take the best out of each of those and put it together.
But now, just to be clear, go ahead. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, if I take Brendan's to task on that, like, I use that term because it's colloquially what I would use. But in effect, we take bits and pieces of the English, Irish, and Scottish constitution and put them together, and that's where we've got the New South Wales ACT ritual.
Interesting. Well, okay, so in America, Virginia is slightly different, but typically for American lodges, you have now, this is where you can have a whole discussion on what's York. In my opinion, unless you tell me you're something different, you're York right. But people say we're not. It's like, well, what are you? Are you American right? No such thing. But basically, we inherited the English system, what was primarily from England, and it's called the York Rite, even though people argue it doesn't come from York, but it is called the York Rite. But the whole Preston Webb ritual, the whole basically how American lodges are structured is right. And I think a lot of Masons don't realize the difference between a rite and a ritual. But basically, if you have to be a man, if you have to believe in a supreme being, and if we have the 3 degrees and that's it, that's York Rite. And if you vary differently from that, you're called something else. But now, within the York Rite as an appendant body, we have the Royal Arch chapter, which is Mark Master through Royal Arch. We have the cryptic, the council degrees, which is 3 degrees, sometimes 2. And then we have the commander, which is the knights, the orders. In Virginia, we absorbed the cryptic degrees, Mark and Select Master, into the Royal Arch. So you get those along the way to get into the Royal Arch, and then you can join the commander. So we only have 3 bodies on the York Rite side: Blue Lodge, Royal Arch, Commander. But Virginia, West Virginia are unique in that sense. But they're completely appendant bodies. They are not, you have to be a Mason to join them. And you have in most supreme councils in the world, the Scottish Rite confers the first 3 degrees. And in America, that was not allowed. There were, in order to be considered regular, the Scottish Rite, the Supreme Council, say the Mother Council, had to agree to not confer the first 3 degrees. You must be a Master Mason to join the Scottish Rite. Whereas in most places in the world, you could go knock on the door of a Scottish Rite Valley or whatever they call them, and get your entered apprentice, EA, and fellowcraft in the Scottish Rite ritual and get all of your degrees in the Scottish Rite, and it's its own right. Whereas in America, it's not. It's an appendant body. But you are very similar to England, and they're basically appendant bodies, all of them. Ancient and accepted Rite doesn't. They started the secret master, correct?
Yeah, and the administration of them varies from state to state. In WA, they all come under the chapter, the whole lot.
Really?
You join the chapter, and they manage everything.
The Royal Arch chapter, or
Yep. So they do the mark, the cryptic, the whole lot.
Okay. All right.
In the
Let's see.
United States,
Yep.
saying that the council is separate, except in Virginia and West Virginia. You're
Yes.
the only ones, and you're talking about Scottish Rite, first 3 degrees. There are a few lodges. I don't know how many. I think in Louisiana that work the Scottish Rite.
That's right. That's the exception.
District.
Louisiana is funny. Louisiana has a Supreme Council that is considered irregular by the Southern jurisdiction. So I can't go visit a Louisiana Supreme Council, but they are literally their own Supreme Council just for the state of Louisiana. In addition to and separate from that, there are a handful of lodges under the Grand Lodge of Louisiana that are regular lodges that confer the Scottish Rite degrees. So Louisiana is an interesting place. Very interesting. All right. Let's see. Try to stay in order. Linz, how long does it take typically for a man to go from EA to fellowcraft to Master Mason? And did they have catechisms along the way, or?
No. So I think in Victoria there has to be about at least 3 months. Well, that used to be the case between degrees.
Right.
We do. We don't have to learn a catechism, but there's a series of questions and answers that are asked prior to the beginning of the following degree, and generally with a little bit of prompting from someone standing behind if there's someone forgets their lines. But generally within 12 months you'll be able to go from the EA to the 3rd degree.
But now, does the Grand Lodge say you must wait 3 months before you get the next degree? I mean, there's a rule. You have to wait a certain time.
They did, but they just removed all of those requirements.
Okay.
and left
Because-
it up to the lodge to decide.
Okay, see now, because that sounds like an artificial rule. Now in Virginia, it's because you have to learn the catechism. Some brothers take longer than others. If you're really good at ritual, you can get all 3 degrees in a month or so if you can learn the catechism quickly enough. Typically, it's about 3 or 4 months because the candidate takes that long to learn, like the EA catechism. And then the fellow craft usually is faster because the questions are almost the same. So you're just like, well, I'm on the 2nd degree. So, you just change a word and you got the same answers. But it's up to the candidate how quickly you go. Now, just by comparison, if you cannot stand your EA catechism within 3 to 6 months of being initiated, you have to write a letter to the lodge and request a 6-month extension. At the end of the year, if you're not ready, you have to write a letter again, and quite often you won't get, they'll basically say no. But you have to have extenuating circumstances if it took you 12 months to learn the EA. But it's totally driven by the candidate. If you're fast, it's up to you to get through at your own pace. There's no artificial, you must wait a certain amount of time.
Here's a question for you.
yes,
How many
go ahead.
questions in your entered apprentice catechism?
Well, since it's not written down, it takes about 20 minutes to go through the catechism. The obligation takes at least 5 minutes to recite. Ballpark, I've never counted them all. I'd say 40 or 50 questions. That's a rough guess.
Well, the Filipino Lodge here, which I think is based on Californian ritual, I think that's where the Filipinos got their
Yes.
ritual from,
Yes.
is 56. Their Victorian equivalent is 10.
Okay. All right.
And
Yeah, we
really
do.
short 10.
Yeah, and we have the alternate method we've rolled out here in Virginia for people who don't have time to, I guess, memorize their catechism. And it is very much, it's short, and you have to show the Dugard signs and the grips and all, but you don't have to memorize the obligation, for example. We had a brother who came in through the alternate method, and on his own, he said, okay, now that I'm a master mason, I want to do it the right way. And he went and learned the catechisms and stood them. And I was quite impressed that he didn't have to, but his name is Drayton Sparks. He went on to be master. He's a good guy. But he said, I felt like it wasn't fair to the lodge that I didn't do it the right way. Now, to talk about the 1-day conferral, they have 6 months to learn basically the alternate method, or if they want to learn the catechisms, they can. They have to stand at least the alternate method in order to be fully considered a master mason within 6 months of this 1-day conferral. But it's kind of messy. It's like, well, what happens if he doesn't? I mean, he's already paid dues. He's already a member. So it gets kind of sort of like, let's find a way to get these guys in, but bend the rules. Linz, are there lectures for each degree? Like at the end
Not
of
a
the
some.
degree?
No.
No?
No,
Tracing
Okay.
board lectures.
Yes, tracing board lectures. Brendan, are there, or do you have?
Yes, there's one for each degree, a tracing board lecture.
Okay. We have one for each, and it's half of it's written down in the manual of work, and half of it is by word of mouth. So it's like, if someone wants to learn it, I say, go and read this in the manual of work, and when you've memorized all of the written parts, I'll get with you and fill in the blanks. I enjoy the lectures. I think the lectures are great. I had a lot of fun when I was in Italy. I attended a lodge, Harry S. Truman Lodge. It's a military lodge. I was a contractor. Most everybody in the room was either a senior chief in the Navy or a contractor, but they're all Americans. It was technically, they were chartered into the Grand Lodge of California, and they used Connecticut ritual officially. Unofficially, most of the guys were from Virginia, so the ritual was almost identical to what I knew. But I'm sitting there watching the EA, fellowcraft degree rather, and I know the senior deacon's lecture was the first one I learned. And I'm listening, I'm like, okay. And halfway through, nope. Went on for about 10 minutes. I had no idea what they were talking about. And then they swerved back into, oh yes, this part I know again. So they inserted something in the middle, totally alien to what I had memorized. So they had my whole lecture with a bunch of stuff in the middle that I'd never seen. So I guess that was Connecticut or maybe California ritual. I'm not sure. So it's always fun to see the differences. Linz, what are your, oh, I'm sorry, no, yeah. Richard, sorry. What are your dues for your lodge?
Well, the lodge dues would be probably around about, say, $140, and then the Grand Lodge dues on top of that will be another 140.
Wow, it's that much? Okay, so now that, I'm sorry, is that the Australian dollar or is that, okay.
Yeah, Australian dollars.
And
Yeah.
so, do you know what that is compared to the American dollar, just for a frame of
Well,
reference?
it's about 60 cents is one Australian dollar.
Okay, so it's more, so 180 or something, okay. But
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
all told, it's $280 Australian, wow. Are there other costs, Richard? Like, do you pay for the dinners or you just, everybody's paid, put the money in a basket, or do you have other regular expected costs?
You're asked to make a contribution, but the contribution is pretty minimal. It might be $5, it might be 10, but there
Okay.
are some lodges where they have a proper sit-down meal, and it might be $60, $70.
Okay, for a special meeting, okay.
Yep.
Can y'all hear the concert in the background? They just picked up.
Oh,
I hear it going. I'm usually, well, I mean, it's away, so I can hear it a little bit, but I don't know if y'all can. Okay, Graham, how do you dress for lodge? What's typical? Coat tie.
We've got daylight meetings. They require suit and tie or jacket and tie,
Yep.
and for evening meetings, it's a dinner suit and bow tie.
Okay. That's like tuxedo or dinner jacket.
Tuxedo, yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. And I can't see all of the chat. Some people are replying to the chat. So if you want to just pipe in so everybody can hear you, you're welcome to. Brendan, do you buy your own aprons? Or like does the master get an apron? How do your aprons?
You get your entered apprentice and fellow craft apron inside at the end of your degree, you're given a pack. And that includes your apron, some books on what's just happened. You get the ritual of that degree. But everyone else, you've got to buy your aprons, your Master Mason apron, your Master's apron, all of that.
Everyone buys the okay. And you wear now, are they decorative? Are they are they different, or are they all kind of this, they look the same, or how was that?
I gather in a lot of American lodges, your Master Mason's apron, unless you're in office, looks a lot like an entered apprentice apron.
Correct. It's just plain white lambskin.
Yes, you put the flap up. You either put one corner up.
Right.
For us, your Master Mason's apron is our entered apprentice apron. Our fellow craft apron has 2 blue rosettes on it. And then the past master's apron has the little triple towels, 3 of those, and 3 blue rosettes.
But they're standardized. Everyone wears the same looking Master Mason. Okay. Yeah. Now in Virginia, a past master, typically the past master is given a nice past master's apron from the lodge. It's white with blue trim, it's got a blue border and got a nice past master's logo in the middle with the little leaves or whatever around it, the ivy. My lodge, my mother lodge, Charles T. Morton gave me and by the way, Pete was a member of Charles T. Morton with me. They gave me an apron in 1996, so I have 1996 embroidered on the bottom. They gave me that, and it's nice. It's leather. It's got nice ropes. I wore that for years. When I was elected Master of Ocean View that I affiliated with, I had 2012 sewn on the point of the flap, where there's like the blue, down the middle, there's the triangle. Well, that's a flap. I had 2012 put there. So when I wear it, it's 2012 and 2016. It didn't make sense to me, No, not, I'm sorry, 1996 and 2012. 16 was one. I didn't see the sense in having the lodge give me a second past master's apron since I've been wearing mine for 16 years. So I thought I'd save them money, and I just simply had it embroidered with both years on it. But that's just me. But the lodge will pay. And what Ocean View does actually is they have a nice apron that's made up that you wear for a year, and it has the past master's emblem on it, just like mine. But it's just like the lodge officers' aprons. It's stiffer, it's a little bigger, and there's this white leather piece that like is velcroed in that has the square. So for the year you're master, you wear that apron everywhere you go, and it shows the square because you're the sitting master. And at the end of that time, you peel off the velcro. I don't know what you do with that flap. I guess you put it away somewhere. The little piece you take off, but you don't wear it again. You have the past masters underneath. So it's your apron. But I really like mine because I was able to buy a nice laptop case that zips up, and I just fold it in half and it fits in there. I didn't want these big portfolio size apron cases some guys have that are like, 20 some inches by 18 some. They're huge. My thing is like, if you think of a laptop case, if I had mine, I'd show it to you, but it just zips up. And I fold it in half, and it fits good in there, and it holds a manila folder with all of my papers that I'm taking somewhere, and my gloves, and my cigars. So I've got a nice traveling case when I need to go anywhere. But I wear that past master's apron everywhere I go. And what's funny is in Virginia Research, because I'm an officer now, I had to break my habit. Pete will vouch for it. I ride with him. I had to break my habit of bringing my apron because I didn't need it. Because I'm wearing the senior warden's apron for now. It was like, if I don't need to bring it, I don't need to bring it. But that's kind of that's like my traveling briefcase. So, and Robert's yelling at us. Oh, you got your hands up, Robert? Or are you just chilling? All right. Let's see. I lost track. I'm sorry. Richard, you're next, I hope. Do you have degree nights, or do you always work on yours? Like, how often does your lodge meet, and do you have separate degree nights, or you do work on business nights? How does that work?
Oh, we tend to meet 11 times a year, and if there's a candidate to have a degree, we'll do the degree. Okay. Otherwise, we might have a quiz or some sort of educational thing, but it's mainly degree work.
But you don't have it's a stated meeting, so like you can vote for candidates and all that. You do business at each meeting. You don't have called communications. No.
And the business is all done in the first degree.
Okay.
So it's not done in the third degree like it is in America.
Go ahead, Brendan.
We didn't have a Morgan scandal.
Well,
that's why you guys do it all in the third degree.
I think so. Yeah, we meet in the Master Masons.
Some states do it in the first degree, like Arizona does the first degree.
Yes. In Virginia, I think is typical, but a lot of them do work on the EA now. In Virginia, we have our stated meetings. So like Ocean View meets on the second Friday of every month. And that's the only time that is stated is the only time you can vote. You can do actual business, vote on a candidate, pay bills, stuff like that. We do not do degree work at a stated. At most, we might let someone return their Master Mason's catechism, but we don't ever do degree work. We have called communications on any other Friday of the month where we meet, open an EA lodge for the EA go home. Now, to give you an example of how strange it was at one time when I joined, you had to open on the Master Mason's degree at a call communication. So consider this, you go to lodge, you have an EA who's doing his catechism, and you're going to pass it to fellowcraft. You open the Master Mason's lodge, salute the flag, only the Master Masons are in the room. You then call off. You bring in the entered apprentices if you have any, including like your candidate who's going to stand his catechism. You open an entered apprentice lodge. You don't have to do prayers, but you open the EA lodge. You examine him in the entered apprentice degree. You close the entered apprentice degree. You open the fellowcraft's degree. You then bring in the candidate and pass him to the degree of fellowcraft. You then close the fellowcraft's degree and he can sit there. Then you kick him out in any of the fellowcrafts. You reopen, you call on the Master Masons Lodge from refresh or from late, well, not late refreshment. You call back on the Master Masons Lodge, and then you close the Master Masons Lodge. You had to do all that in a single night. Thankfully, in like the early 90s, someone had good sense and said, okay, forget that. If you're going to work in the EA degree, you just open and close the EA Lodge, and that's all you have to do. But it was crazy how you had to do that. Now, Pete and I were members of Charles T. Morton. I left. Pete was still with them till they closed down. They got to the point where they were paying rent at Norview Lodge where they were meeting. They couldn't afford to meet more than once a month, so they literally would do all their degree nights on a stated night because they didn't want to pay rent 2 nights a month. So that's how it get for a smaller lodge that's, count pennies. They only would meet 12 times a year, and if they had any degree work, it would happen on their stated. But that's the situation that lodge found itself in. Virtually every other lodge around here, we just open on a call. We have a call communication, do our business, and go home.
We had
Go ahead.
we had times where only the officers were present, and that was most of our meetings.
Yep. I can't imagine trying to get through a Master Mason's degree with just the officers. That's like bring in the one fellowcraft. Let's see. Graham, we already covered 3 nights. Okay. Is there a difference? Are your well, I guess you have your annual meetings where you elect you install the new officers, but that's basically the only difference then will be the annuals.
So you're asking,
Like your
Just
annual
about.
meeting would have a little more business, but it's typical like your other ones.
we're similar to some of the other states in Australia, where
Okay.
we will have the 3 degrees, and we only open in the 1 degree that we work in, and if we pass candidates, we move up into the various degrees and do it that way.
Right.
When we install the master, is that what you're asking? Yeah.
Yeah, the question was you guys already answered the question of whether you have call communication. So my question was, do you have a difference between an annual as stated and a degree night? But since you typically don't have degree nights, it's not quite the same thing. So
Yeah.
Graham, let me ask you then, do you when you have your regular business meetings, so you open on the EA degree, can an entered apprentice ballot on a candidate, vote on bills or anything, or they're just
Absolutely. Absolutely. They get the right to vote on any issue that's before the lodge because it's in that degree.
right? Okay, so you read a
and-
petition, you open on the EA degree, and you read a petition and ballot on it in the EA, and all of your EAs get to ballot along with their bids. Okay,
Absolutely.
now by comparison, of course, in Virginia, you don't pay dues till you're a Master Mason. So you have some rights as a Mason, like as an EA or a fellowcraft. In Virginia, you don't get to wear a ring, you don't get to ballot, you don't get to vote, you don't get to attend business meetings because we're not open on that degree. And if you happen to die as an EA, you don't get Masonic rights. So you have some rights as an EA and a fellowcraft, but you don't get all your full rights and benefits till you're a Master Mason. But again, you don't pay dues till you're a Master Mason. So that's kind of the trade-off. But that gives you the incentive, of course, that you want to get through your catechism so you can fully participate in the lodge. Brendan, is there more than one volume of sacred law on the altar?
In a couple of lodges, yes. Majority of lodges, it's the King James. But in
Right.
lodges where there's Islamic members or Hindu members, etc., there's other books out. We have 3 fairly predominant Jewish lodges.
Okay.
They'll have their own volume out.
But whether you're doing degree work or not for that candidate, you still put all the volumes out. So it's like Rudyard Kipling had in India, where there'd be 5 or 6 books. Okay. And that's every meeting. See, I think it's
Yeah,
kind of cool. But
It's like the lodges in Singapore. They have about 8 or 9 out on theirs. They've got a special table for that many of them.
oh my goodness. Okay. But that's out of respect to all of your members. It has nothing to do with the individual. Now, of course, that candidate, if you had a Muslim candidate, the Quran would be center stage and have those square and compasses on it for his obligation. Okay, interesting. I kind of like that idea myself. Of course, Virginia, typically Virginia, we have Jews and Protestants pretty much. I mean, that's us. There are a few Muslim brothers, not many. I know I think we've used a Quran once or twice. If the candidate has asked for his own holy book for his obligation, we'll use it. But typically, we will only have the Holy Bible on the altar for any time. Brendan, so go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say in Virginia, even though we have Jewish members, we still use the King James version.
That's correct.
Even when they're in lodge.
Right. We don't.
Well, I suppose you just open it at the front half.
Yeah.
Well, actually, all of the 3 different books, the 3 different verses are all in the Old Testament. It's let's see if I know Corinthians and man, I'm drawing a blank.
Genesis.
No, not Genesis. I'd have to look it up. I'm sorry. I should be better prepared. If I could see, I'd look it up. But yeah, it's it's the passage that's used in the EA, the fellowcraft, when you bring the candidate around the room without getting too much details. You read a Bible verse, and it's that verse which the book Amos would see us that. It's open to Amos, and it's open to Corinthians, and it's open to one other one. I can't remember. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No,
okay.
It's yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's why I have my researchers on site.
Drew a blank again.
What's that?
I drew a blank.
Okay. Brendan, where are the 3 candles?
Our candles have morphed into lights on the top of the pillars next to the master and 2 wardens. So we no longer have 3 lights out on the pavement.
Okay, so all 3.
They have their pillars next to them, and there's a light now on the top of their pillars.
Are they in the east, west, and south?
Yes.
Or master wardens? Okay. Because some Grand Lodges, apparently, some lodges, all 3 are sitting in the east. Okay. This is a question I added because my Canadian brother, Cameron Adamson, was doing one of our early Zoom meetings. I don't know if anybody here was around for that. He talked about Winchester Lodge, Winchester Masonic Temple in Winchester, Canada. And he basically gave us a tour. It's a very famous building in that city. It's like, 6 stories, and a lot of lodges meet there, and they do public events and other things. But he was showing us pictures, and I said, whoa, where's the G? And the G was suspended over the altar. So I added this question. So, Linz, where's the letter G in your Blue Lodge?
Generally, it hangs from the ceiling in the center of the lodge above the pavement.
See, y'all are just wrong. Just kidding. So that's typical for Australia then, that it's over the altar in the center of the lodge.
Except the altar moves as well. Victoria doesn't have it in the middle of the pavement.
Where is it, in the east?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. In Virginia, it's in the east above the master. Okay.
No, but the actual altar itself, most American lodges, you have it in the middle of the pavement.
Yes, right in the middle, yes.
Here in Victoria, we don't. Pavement's empty.
Oh, the altar's in what, at the foot of the east then?
Yeah, it's part of the master's pedestal.
Interesting. So the candidate's obligated up in the east. Okay, interesting. Lynn, let's see. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep you all in order. If I skip around, forgive me. No, I did ask Liz. Richard, what are some of your working tours?
Oh, we've got 3 in each degree.
Okay.
And So, yeah, we have the
24-inch gauge, common
24-inch
gavel,
gauge,
chisel.
common gavel, and the chisel.
Okay,
And then
we don't
the
have the
three
chisel.
working-
Okay.
Right. And then we have the square and the level and the plumb in the second degree, and
Same for us.
there's also 3 in the Master Mason's degree. There's no working tools in the installed Master's degree in
Right.
Australia.
Well, what are they in the
This-
Master Masons? We just have the
The
trowel.
skirret, the pencil, and the compasses.
You don't have the trowel.
No.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay.
We even here in Victoria remove the word trowel from the ritual.
Really? Very interesting. Okay.
Some of
Go ahead.
our lodges have the trowel in their seal
Right.
or their
Okay.
emblem, but they don't talk about it.
That
Okay.
means they're Irish.
Ah.
Yeah, they were Irish.
Yeah, the Irish always have the trowel in their symbol.
Right.
Yeah.
Richard, do you have, are the ancient landmarks spelled out, written down, enumerated in your Grand Lodge?
In South Australia, they had the 25 landmarks from Mackey's list in
Okay.
around about 1880s.
Yep.
But then there was a big dispute about it. And then when they brought out the next book of the second edition of the Book of Constitutions, that part was omitted from the book.
Okay.
So there's still argument about it, but there's probably only about 2 or 3 landmarks. We don't really talk about them very much, or if we do,
Right.
it's a non-productive discussion.
Yes. Interesting. Okay. Graham, do you serve a meal, a dinner, or snacks, or anything? Do you serve food before or after your meetings, Tim?
After the meetings, for evening lodges.
Okay.
Some of the daylight lodges, they will call off and have a meal halfway through and then call back on.
Okay.
And others will continue all the way through and have the meal at the end of the start of meeting.
Okay. Brendan, do
And
you
don't
have?
forget, we drink alcohol as well.
Well, I'm getting to that.
Not in all lodges.
Most.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
we're gonna get to that. Do you have social occasions, Brendan?
Yes, yeah, lodges, it's up to them to, organise social events. Lots do. They'll have barbecue outings or whatever.
Okay.
It's an individual lodge thing, how much you have of the social calendar.
Okay. And Liz, do you invite wives and family members to any of your dinners or any social functions?
Yeah, generally they would be invited to attend at in the south, which is where we have our supper after the meal, and
Okay.
certainly they're a big part of any social functions that would take place.
Okay. Richard, do you have co-masonry? Are there any mixed or female lodges in Australia?
Well, in my state, we've got one lodge with females only.
You do?
And that comes under the Order of Women Freemasons in London. And we've also got one co-masons lodge, but we're not allowed to attend any of those. The women's only lodge does rent our lodge premises for their meetings, and they're held on a Saturday, but no men are allowed in the building.
Okay, so they're not regular to you all. They're not recognized, but they do meet.
Yeah,
There.
correct.
Okay, interesting. Okay, that's starting to become more of a thing here in America, where apparently there is a slight movement to bring about co-masonry. That's a whole other discussion by itself. But okay, Graham, do you have men? Well, we mentioned religion already, but are men of every race welcome in your lodges? Is there any kind of social stigma for? I mean, you do have Aborigines, which might compare in a way to the blacks in America and their difficulties with the rest of us stuck up white people. Do you have like
No.
racial issues, or can any man be any race be a member of lodges, or is that ever an issue anywhere?
No, we don't. In New South Wales, we don't have a problem with race. We've got an Aboriginal member in our own lodge. up there, and we don't have a problem. They just have to be free and of mature age.
Right. Very good. Okay. I mean, y'all know enough about Prince Hall. I don't want to delve into that. There was a big schism here in America that's rather embarrassing. It's one of those things where, look, it happened over 200 years ago. I wasn't there to complain about it. I can't do much about it other than advocate that we recognize our Prince Hall Grand Lodges. And maybe down the road we may eventually merge all together, but that's more of a logistical thing. And I don't see it happening anytime soon. But we only have 4 Grand Lodges left in America, mainstream or state lodges, Grand Lodges, that don't recognize the Prince Hall counterpart. Virginia's recognized ours since late 90s or 2000, whatever it was, and we now have several others that we recognize and have asked us, like the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Alaska asked Virginia to recognize them. We did. I didn't realize there were enough black men in Alaska to actually have a Grand Lodge, but apparently there are.
Are you allowed to visit them?
Yes, and actually in Virginia, until recently, it had to be more of a formal thing where you coordinate with both grand secretaries, and it'd be like Virginia Research actually had a whole contingent of about 20 Prince Hall Masons from Virginia came and visited. And the current Grand Secretary, he was past Grand Master of Prince Hall in Virginia, was our guest speaker. The most interesting part, and that event, in my mind, I think what inspires me to do these panel discussions, because we had our guest speaker and he talked about the history of Prince Hall of Virginia, and it was all very interesting. But what I remember is once he was finished, the master of Virginia Research opened up the floor and just any brother could ask a question across the way of, between the two. And I think one of us asked the Prince Hall brothers, like, what do you see as really different between us? And one guy stood up and said, look at y'all. You're in a sport coat, a Brett sport coat, and a colorful tie. You're in a sport coat. You're in that kind of suit. You're in that kind of suit. All of us, every one of us, black suit, white shirt, black tie, black shoes, period. That is very strict. They would not even wear colorful ties in their meeting. They were blown away that we're all there in like sport coats and, typical lodge dress. They couldn't believe we were that casual. So it was very enlightening to contrast and compare how Prince Hall does business compared to the state Grand Lodge. And honestly, we kind of fall short because they take it much more seriously than we do. And they talk about a guy petitions to join a Prince Hall Lodge. They get to know him. They get to know that we didn't have we just recently added a criminal background check in Virginia. You have to pay another $25 and they run a federal background check to see if you have a criminal past. And if you lied and it comes out, you have to explain yourself or they won't let you. You have to justify why you didn't tell the truth. But we have to decide as a lodge if we let you in if your background check had anything suspicious. Well, for the Prince Hall, this is again about 15, 20 years ago, they do background checks. They keep tabs on you. If you're an entered apprentice, they're watching you. They're watching you how you interact in the world as you're going through. And if you mess up, if you're out there being the fool somewhere, they may not let you be a full of crap. They actually pay closer attention as you're coming through. And we're sort of like, if your check clears, you can learn the catechism, we'll let you in. It's kind of like, we only do one check at the beginning. They're much stricter, and I give them great props for that. They hold the standards higher than we do. I thought that was quite interesting. Brendan, what, I don't know if this applies, but I'll ask anyway. What language is all of your meetings held in? Is Australia typically, you all speak Australian? Australian English? What do you call it?
Yes.
Australian?
English. Yeah,
English.
no, we all speak English. We have an Italian lodge that's allowed to work an Italian ritual once a year if they want to, but they haven't done it in years.
Okay. Well, other than do the Filipinos meet in? They speak in Tagalog.
They speak English as well. Yeah, no, they don't do it all in Tagalog.
Okay. Now, to be fair, I recycle questions from previous meetings. I'm interested in places that are not where English is not the primary language. What language to speak. Obviously, you all are speaking English, so it's not typically an issue. Lids, are men of every class of society in your lodge? Are you white collar, blue collar, a mix? Is there any kind of, how does that pan out?
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly, the only prohibition would probably be having a criminal record, would preclude you from being a member of the lodge. But otherwise, we have tradesmen and all the way up to professionals, doctors, lawyers, police officers, all that sort of thing.
Do you still have a lot of professionals, doctors, lawyers, and so on? I mean,
No, I think certainly Metropolitan there is a number of them, but I would say the vast majority of people are made up from
blue collar.
Blue collar.
Is blue collar a thing in us? I mean, I'm using American terms, I know, but is blue collar? Yeah. When I say blue collar, you all know what I mean. Right?
No, we'd use. Yeah.
Okay.
Blue collar white.
All right. Now, the most important question, Richard, do you have cigars or smoking in your lodge or after the meetings or what?
No smoking. No smoking probably for 20 plus years. No such thing as cigar nights.
Okay.
We have whiskey
Not even
nights.
afterwards, not in the buildings
No.
at all. Do any of you all, I'll ask the whole group, any of you have, okay.
No, it's totally illegal to smoke inside a building, public building.
Oh, really?
See.
Okay.
Complete ban on it.
In,
So you got to go outside and smoke cigarettes. And
You can go
cigars.
out and vape.
okay. Typically now Ocean View, I think, is a little different. I think we do things a little bit better than some other lodges in our district. For those of you, I've mentioned it before, but y'all may not know, we have Granby Street, which is a very large Masonic building in Norfolk, which is in the area I live in. I'm in Virginia Beach, so I'm on near the water. We have Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, and Norfolk. We're all kind of in the same general area. Each city has their own district, and we kind of share Scottish Rite, Royal Arch, and all that. But the joke in Hampton Roads, which is what we call this area, is you live in one city, you work in another, and you go to lodge in a third. And that's true for most of us. Most of my Masonic ties are to Norfolk because I was in the Marines stationed in Norfolk when I got started. I've never joined anything out at the beach other than like a research chapter. And I still go to Norfolk for all my meetings. But Granby Street, at one time, Granby Street had, I think, 10 or 11 blue lodges. Right now, at our heyday, we had 11. I think we're about 8 lodges. We had 2 Royal Arch chapters, a commandery, a Scottish Rite, two Royal Arch, Scottish Rite commandery, 4 Eastern Star chapters, an Amaranth Port, 2 Joby Bethels, 1 Rainbow Assembly, 1 DeMolay chapter, all met in the same building. A lot of those have gone away. We still have about 8 blue lodges. But Granby Street, you used to be able to smoke upstairs in one room and in the hallway, and they banned smoking through the whole building. Ocean View owns our own building. We're a typical lodge where you have a 2-story building, lodge rooms upstairs, dining hall downstairs, and we set up like a quarter of the downstairs and put in some big comfortable couches and easy chairs in one centering around like a big ottoman. And we have a TV that never gets turned on. But that's our man cave. And we would sit there and smoke cigars in the man cave after the meetings. We could have a school night or a lodge meeting or a degree night, and we're going to be there at least 2 hours afterwards, sitting around talking, socializing. We can't have alcohol, but we do smoke cigars, most of us. We've gotten to where most of us smoke outside if it's nice out, but cigars are a big culture within Ocean View, and just being able to smoke afterwards is we've encouraged the fellowship afterwards and the hanging around, kind of like what we're doing here, the social afterwards, and that's gone a long way to keep our lodge vibrant.
You're just a strange lodge.
What's that?
That's how.
Ocean View is just a strange lodge.
We are. That's why we won't let you in, Pete. We would let you in, I promise. Feel free to affiliate.
That's our trade-off. No smoking in the building, but we can drink alcohol.
Right. So, Brendan, you can answer that. So you can have alcohol. Well, not during the meetings, I think, but like after the meetings.
No.
What?
And my Lodge of Research now meets in the upstairs room of a pub.
Okay. So you go downstairs and have drinks afterwards.
No, we actually dine in the room. So
Oh, okay.
we call off and we're a research lodge, so we don't do ceremonial work.
Right.
But we actually call off, tell them to bring the dinners in at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, there's a knock on the door. In come the dinners.
Okay.
And then we have our speaker, etc., call back on and close
Very
the
good.
lodge.
Now, you don't have, staying with Brendan there, you don't have a table lodge like we do in Virginia. The festive, well, it's not really a festive board. I wouldn't call it a festive board, but that's the closest our table lodge is to it. You don't have, do you have festive boards or?
Well, we call our supper a festive board.
Okay. Okay.
But research actually meets at table. So we're conducting the meeting and dining at the table. So it's not set up like a lodge room. It's set up like it would have been 300 years ago.
Very good. I think we should emulate that. Well, Virginia has a table lodge, which is actually. Go ahead.
The way we meet looks a lot like the recent Andrew Hammer movie they put out on Masonic dining.
Oh, okay.
And have you seen that?
I have not. Oh, my bad.
Okay. I'd recommend you go and have a look at it.
I
I
will.
showed it on one of the Sunday nights recently, and Andrew even turned up, which meant it would have been 3 o'clock in the morning for him, but he turned up as well.
Wow, I would like to see that. So we're not allowed, Virginia is not allowed alcohol in the meetings at all, period. We just can't serve alcohol. Okay, I'm gonna have to pause for 1 minute and go plug in my laptop. So if you all want to discuss amongst yourself for a minute, I'll be right back.
Brothers, earlier on, for those of you who are American Masons and not familiar with a working tool that's usually English Masonry was mentioned, the skirt. This is a skirt.
That's one.
It's a thing. It's a spool of thread of cord and a spike, and it's used to draw a straight line for laying bricks. And bricklayers use it all the time, but we never ever hear of this thing called a skirt. But this is a ceremonial one, and it has I've seen an old one at the Philadelphia Grand Lodge building in Pennsylvania Grand, and it's a full spool thing. So.
Yeah, they're a bit like, as you say, the old bricklayers line that they'd put out with the chalk on it. They'd flick the line and that would leave a chalk mark along where they'd work.
And of course, a pencil is a pencil.
And they all operate on a center pin.
I also agree that in the entered apprentice degree, there should be, in addition to the there should be a chisel, because if you whale away on a stone with a hammer, what are you going to do? Have a bunch of pebbles.
And we say the chisel represents. We say the chisel represents education.
Yep.
I appreciate you all actually keeping it going. I'll catch up on that when I watch some recording. I'm sorry I was down to 19% and my laptop was yelling at me. I didn't know how to make the whole meeting, but I got the camera going. I've got the everything. So I had to plug power in. Okay. Thank you for bearing with me as I stepped out. Let's see. Linz, I'm one of those. Okay, yeah. I'm going to assume I can't be more. I'm going to stop apologizing. Linz, do you have youth groups in Australia? I mentioned DeMolay Joby's Rainbow. Do you have youth groups?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch what you said then. Do you have
youth groups? DeMolay, Job's Daughters Rainbow. Masonic sponsored youth in Australia.
DeMolay.
Youth groups? No, there is a DeMolay, but I'm not sure how common it is. I think mostly the Filipino brethren would be involved in that, but no real Masonic youth groups.
Okay.
Is that right,
Brendan,
Brendan?
you mentioned DeMolay? You do?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, no, Lindsay's right. It's primarily the Filipinos that got that up and running.
It is a big deal. Again, Virginia has all three youth groups. I grew up, youth groups are important to me because I joined DeMolay at 16. And as I saw it, DeMolay was basically watered down masonry. So I wanted to join the real deal as soon as I could. So when I got stationed in Virginia and in Greens, I got active in the DeMolay chapter. Funny story, I grew up, I really didn't know a lot about the military life. I watched Gomer Pyle a few times, so I was literally under the impression that joining the Marines, I would be stationed in Camp Lejeune, and I would be living in a Quonset hut, and I would have to get a weekend pass, and I wouldn't always get one. So I would never leave the base, right? So I thought, well, I joined at 18, and several members of my DeMolay chapter and advisors were Marines, so that drove me to join the Marine Corps. I thought, well, when I'm 22, I'll get out after my first tour and I'll go join a lodge then. And I got to Virginia and I checked in at my command, and it was a higher headquarters. And I was working in an office, and I went to work the first day, and they said, well, be here at 0720. You're off at 1600 every day. I said, and then what? Well, you have field days on Thursdays, so you have to muster for a field day, but you're living in the barracks and all. I was like, well, can I go out town? And they're like, yeah, what do you think? Just Gomer Pyle? What? Yeah, there's no Liberty Pass or anything then. So no joke. I really thought I would be living away from society for 4 years. So I'm 18. I'm in Virginia. I walk to the nearest civilized part of Norfolk, Ward's Corner. I found the Masonic Lodge. I found a DeMolay chapter and got active as a member. I was already a member in Seattle, so I just started attending. You didn't have to transfer. You're a DeMolay, you're a life member. You can go to any chapter you want. So I got active in the DeMolay. And my roommate was 19. I got him to join DeMolay at 19, and the age is 13 through 21. But he joined at 19 because he had a car. And it was very easy to bring him in because I said, 2 girls groups, 1 boys group. I'm in. So we traveled everywhere. And so from 19 to 18, 19, 20, before I left for Okinawa, I went everywhere in Virginia and got to know people all over the place. Now, fast forward 30 some years, my son joins DeMolay a couple of years ago, and we go up to Northern Virginia. Oh, actually, DC, it was House of the Temple. We went to they had a big weekend where they initiated new members, and I knew everybody in the room. And my son finally asked me, he's like, how do you know all these people? I was like, because I met them all when I was 18, and their sons are in DeMolay now. So I know people all over the state. So the youth groups have always been important to me. Rainbow has gotten much bigger in Virginia since I moved here. There was only 1 or 2 assemblies, but they got their own state organization. They used to be under South Carolina. But Joby's and Rainbow and DeMolay were always big in this state. They've kind of gone down over the years, but they're still active where they are. And that's why I always support the youth groups, because that's what got me into masonry. It's always been important.
So you married a job's daughter, did you?
I had planned to. My wife, her sister was at Joby's. She was too old by the time she joined, and we were both advisors in the youth group, so that's how we met. So I was very close to my original rule was I'm going to marry a Rainbow or a Joby. Let's see. Go ahead. Okay. Richard, well, I think we covered this a little bit, but do you have research lodges?
Sorry, I missed that back.
Do you have research lodges? I think Brendan mentioned it.
Oh, well, in South Australia, we don't anymore, but or in the Northern Territory, but most Australian states would have at least 1 research lodge.
Okay. And Brendan, you mentioned you're in a research lodge. You only meet 4 times a year? Or
No, we meet about 8 or 9 times a year.
Oh, cool.
in the upstairs room of our pub. We have a
Right.
planned schedule for the year. So you know at the start of the year what those 8 or 9 events will be and who's speaking. And then we publish it all at the end of the year in a little glossy book.
Very
I
cool.
don't have one to hand. Oh, yes, I do.
And-
There you go.
Okay. And yeah, we used to do proceedings and we stopped. I've kind of replaced that with our weekly email listing. We haven't published it on proceedings in years. So Brendan, you have to affiliate with a research lodge? You're not allowed to do, you don't make masons, right?
No, we don't make. You've got to be a master mason to join us and a member of a lodge in Victoria.
Right. Okay. Yeah. We're very similar. Virginia Research Course. We only meet 4 times a year. Typical in the States, we only meet 4 times a year. Always on a Saturday, it seems. And you do have to maintain a membership in a Blue Lodge, either in Virginia or a state that we recognize. So if you're in a Grand Lodge, we recognize you can affiliate with us. Graham, do you have special, let's see, what's the right term? Do you have special interest lodges in Australia?
I believe we do. I think there's a Scout Lodge. No, I think that's the only one that comes to mind. There may be others, but that's the only one I'm aware of.
And they're a regular lodge. They make masons and all like that. They do. They meet like regular lodges. Okay. Because I've heard about.
There are some
Go ahead.
military sort of lodges as well. You know,
Right.
people that have been in the military, but they're not restricted like they would have been in the past.
Ah,
And
okay.
they work ordinary degrees. They don't have
Right.
travelling warrants.
Okay.
We have a motorcycle lodge, and we also have a couple of ethnic lodges. Greek one, Italian, as I said. There's 3 Jewish lodges.
Right.
So we've got
Interesting.
some that, and in Graham's district, they've got a couple of really big Lebanese lodges.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Well, now I know that England has special interest lodges, and from what I gather, they don't meet. They meet 4 or 6 times a year, and people belong to more than one, I guess. But that's something in America that never caught on. I would love to see that in Virginia, that we maybe do a special interest lodge. I remember one brother I talked about he wanted to start Tobacco Leaf Lodge number 1687 or something, and the number was the year that tobacco was first produced in Virginia, and have it lit. The idea was we would actually be able to smoke cigarettes or cigars or pipes in the lodge meeting. But he never brought that to fruition. But that was his goal. It's now a Tobacco Leaf Lodge. I would love to see special lodges. Go ahead.
Oh, years ago, they used to have things like taxi drivers' lodges and
Right.
football umpires' lodges and a lodge for people that worked in the tax office, that kind of thing. All of those have fallen away.
Yeah. Is that just because membership has dropped, that there's not enough interest to keep it going? It makes sense.
Yeah, there's not enough taxi drivers or tax office employees or that sort of thing.
Brendan, what is the primary charity? Does your Grand Lodge have a particular charity that they endorse?
No, it varies. For a while, it was a breast cancer centre we were supporting. I'm not sure what their current one is. And quite often, most lodges have their own charity that they raise funds for.
Right. Well, I was thinking more like at a Grand Lodge level, like Virginia. Well, they like to say that the Masonic Home is our charity, but that's a very selfish charity because it's only open to Virginia Masons and their wives and widows. But that's our charity. But we do have blood drives. The American Red Cross. You do. Go ahead.
A lot of the country lodges will support some community thing in their region or whatever.
Right. Okay. Linz, do you take up money at every meeting? Yeah. Other than dues, do you collect? I don't know. Do you have a Masonic home, or do you have any sort of a regular charity that your lodge passes the hat for at your meetings?
Well, we do have Masonic homes in Victoria.
Okay.
We would only collect money in the south. Perhaps maybe we have a raffle generally every meeting, and occasionally the proceeds of the raffle will be donated to a specific organisation or person who's in particular need at that time. But there's no regular collection of money for a particular group.
Right. Like I mentioned, we have the Masonic home, and we have a what is it? What's the name? Well, anyway, you get a nice award. You're encouraged by the Grand Lodge to raise money for the Masonic home, and we typically do it like at the annual. We pass the hat for that. But they have money taken out of our dues every year at the Grand Lodge level, specifically for the home. Well, that doesn't stop them from passing the hat. But the Masonic home in Virginia is actually a really nice, well-established one, and they've put a lot of work into it. It has a very large endowment that they build up. I think they set out to make a $10 million endowment fund, and they reached that within a couple months. So they said, screw it, 20 million. We're going for 20 million. So they managed to raise, and I think at least 20 million for their endowment, which is nice. But we definitely get our arms twisted to donate to the home. But they give little plaques and stuff. If your lodge donates, $500 one year, you get a nice little plaque or something from the Masonic home. Richard,
can I just
go ahead.
In New South Wales, we have two charities, the Masonic Homes, and of course that's the Witten Homes, and we have a youth charity which is a start up, what we call it's now known as a Start in Life, and that's predominantly for educational purposes for Masonic children to get education paid for and the likes of that. And in Western Australia, the Scottish Constitution have the Scottish Masonic Charities Foundation.
Okay. Richard, do you wear Masonic rings or lapel pins in public?
Some people wear rings, but not most people probably don't. But people do tend to. We tend to go more for the pins, I think, rather than the rings. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've got a friend who's probably got about 20 pins on his lapel.
Yes. I always have fun picking out what lapel pins I'm going to wear at the time, but I don't generally wear them in public. But I wear my rings on certain events. Graham, do you have car emblems or other more public displays, bumper stickers, anything like that you're a Mason?
Cards? Do you say cards?
You what?
Stickers.
Sorry, I missed that question.
Like we have the magnetic pins or the stick, the big emblems you put on the back of your vehicle. Is that a thing in Australia?
It's to my knowledge, it's not all that big. Like, we don't sort of go out of our way to advertise that we are Masons.
Okay.
We do it, but as like it's more of an individual type, like
right.
Well, if we do it as an event.
Okay. Yeah, Virginia, there are several places you can get Masonic emblems, and a lot of people have them in their cars. I had a bunch of magnetic stickers made when I was Master Motion View. I found a great place online that has like these round magnetic stickers or like oval shaped, like this big. If you've seen, it's designed, I don't know if you all have that out there, but like here we have like the Outer Banks, and you have, in Europe, you have the round ovals for each country. Was quite a thing before the EU, where you have like GB for Great Britain and what all. And we kind of copied that idea here in the States, like OBX for the Outer Banks, a whole bunch of, non-country or state-related things. But the oval magnetic stickers became a big thing in Virginia. So I had the Ocean View logo put on stickers with our lodge website on it. I gave those out my year to all the members. And so we have quite a few. People like to announce themselves on their cars. We have quite a few of those Masonic stuff. But like Italy, oh my God, when I visited, like I mentioned Harry Truman Lodge, which was a military lodge, so we're all Americans. We had a chance to go visit a lodge in Naples that was strictly Grand Orient of Italy. It was actual Italian Masons. And the whole meeting was in Italian. I couldn't understand half of what they were saying, but it was fun to attend. One of the brothers came up to meet me, and it was like the Prince Hall guy. He looked at my lapel, and he's like, he pointed at I had my lodge nameplate, on my pocket, and I had several Masonic emblems on my lapels. He was surprised because, of course, in Italy, you had this issue with propaganda due in like the 70s, and the Vatican Bank and a certain London banker who got hanged from a bridge, and a whole bunch of other stuff went on involving the Italians. But the Italians generally don't advertise their Masonic membership because P2 kind of ruined it for everybody in Italy, and the government took a dim view, and lodges had to turn over their membership rosters to the state because they were worried there were so many cops and judges and lawyers and all who were Masons, and they're doing very bad things on their own. So they don't wear rings, they don't wear lapel pins, they don't have car emblems, they do not advertise their Masonic membership.
It's fairly low key across Europe, because remember, 70 years ago they got wiped out.
Well, this is true too.
Most of them got shipped off to prison war camps,
Yes.
and their lodge buildings got destroyed. So they don't kind of advertise
They
much
want to keep
anymore.
it. They want to keep it on the down low. Understand, Richard? Are your buildings clearly marked? Like, do you have a square and compass outside as well? Yep, you're muted. Sorry.
Our buildings are clearly marked in South Australia.
Okay.
They'll have, say, the square and compass, but they'll also have a big sign up saying the Freemasons.
Right.
And
Okay.
there's a standard sign for that.
All right.
And but the trouble is that some of the signs have been put up on buildings that are 110 years old, and it doesn't really fit the architectural style of the past.
Right. Understood. Graham, are there any prominent leaders in your lodges? Like, I don't know, government officials, celebrities, people that are well known in the community, or is it mostly just working class people?
Again, I'm not too sure currently, but in the past we've had the Lord Carrington. He was the first Grand Master of United Grand Lodge, or New South Wales and ACT. He was I think he was a Cambridge scholar, and so he's one that comes to mind in New South Wales. Of course, I know of other Australians that are famous Australians, like politicians in the past and the like. And of course, the current, I know in Victoria, for example, the current Lord Gilwell is a member of the Scouting Lodge in Victoria.
Okay. We don't have as much. I mean, it seems like all of our famous Masons in America are all in the past. We've had 14 presidents who were Masons, and none recently. Gerald Ford was the last. But we don't have a lot of public people who are active in the lodge who are known. I think most people who are in public life kind of downplay their. If they are Masons, they don't make as much of a deal of it as we used to. Brendan, are you allowed to affiliate within your Grand Lodge? Can you belong to as many lodges as you like?
I'm a member of, I think, 5.
Okay.
And each one is completely different. Completely different.
Well,
One of
that's
them
good.
being a virtual lodge.
Oh, interesting. All right, and Liz, are you allowed to affiliate with lodges in other Grand Lodges? Obviously you are. I think you all have mentioned that, but there's no limitation on belonging to more than one Grand Lodge in Australia?
That's a good question. I'm not sure about that. I don't think there is. I think you can be a member of
Okay.
in jurisdictions, but there are some aren't recognised. You have your them clandestine over there, but you can only be a member of lodges that are in amity with the Grand
Well, of
Lodge.
course. All right. Well, like Virginia, by comparison, you can belong to as many lodges as you want in Virginia. You can affiliate with as many as you like. And of course, our research lodges allows you, belong. You have to affiliate. We don't have a restriction, like if you belong to a lodge in Michigan or something, you can affiliate in a Virginia lodge, we don't mind. There are certain other Grand Lodges in America where you are not allowed to affiliate with more than one lodge, period, or a lodge in another jurisdiction. So like we have brothers who come here from, say, Michigan, who move here. I don't know specifically which one. I'll assume Michigan meets this. A brother from Michigan belongs to a lodge, lives in Virginia, joins a Virginia lodge. He has to then demit from his lodge in Michigan because they don't allow him to belong to more than one. So just because we allow it, other Grand Lodges don't, and you have to decide what you're going to do. About affiliation, I think we have it. I think we do it the right way in Virginia. Let's say I belong to a lodge here, like I belong to Charles T. Morton. I affiliated with Ocean View. On my form for affiliation, I put, am I demitting from my mother lodge, or am I going to keep membership in both? And they get to vote on me, and once they bring me in, they would then send a demit. The secretary would send a demit back to my mother lodge and say he's no longer a member. Some states, some jurisdictions, you have to, if you want to apply to another lodge, you have to demit from your lodge, then put in your petition. And then if you're voted in, you're now a Mason again. If not, if they turn you down, you're no longer a member of any lodge unless you go crawling back, I guess, to your mother lodge and say, it was a mistake, I want to come back. But you can literally get yourself out of a lodge because you can't affiliate with another lodge unless you've already left the one you're in, which to me is, I think, incredibly unfair. It's like, if you say, I can only belong to one at a time, the fair thing is, well, if you petition and they let you in, then you're no longer a member of the first one. But to make you actually demit first, I think is a credible burden on you.
That's what's called dual and or plural membership.
Absolutely.
Pennsylvania allows you to be a member of another lodge outside Pennsylvania, but you can only be a member of one inside Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania. Wow. I guess that's fair. That's how they want to do things. Okay. The last question, this is for every one of you. I'll go around. I'll start with Graham. What is the biggest difference in your mind between American lodges and Australian lodges? Or Masonry in general, between the two?
Well, Masonry in general, I find it great to be able to associate and affiliate even with these Zoom meetings. And I've been on a number of them, getting a viewpoint that's different to how we run things here in Australia or in New South Wales in particular. And that's great, travelling between states, seeing different, how the workings in, say, Queensland is to the workings in Tasmania or Victoria.
Right.
Or, it's about learning and seeing how they participate. Some lodges will allow you to have the ritual book open for degree work. Others frown on it,
Right. Okay.
Just the way.
Brendan, same question. What's the one biggest difference you think between American and Australian? Basically.
Oh, boy, that's a tricky question, actually, because we do have a lot of differences.
Maybe something I haven't covered is what I'm looking for.
Well, I was kind of thinking probably the biggest difference is that most, but not all, states do their open in the third degree. And
Okay.
I probably think that's the biggest difference, because we always open in the first, and if we need to go up, we go up. Whereas
All right.
you guys, it's the reverse. You open in the third,
Yes.
and if you need to go down, you go down.
If we don't work in the EA this year, we're not going to open an EA lodge. That's true.
Yeah.
All right, Liz.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I did, Liz. I'm sorry. Richard, same question. What's the biggest difference between American and Australian masonry? If we haven't, some of we haven't covered yet. You can think of anything.
Well, you've got the you know, you've got the idea of the York Rite, which we
Uh-huh.
don't have.
Yeah. good point.
Also, I think you've got the virtual past master degree, whereas ours is, you know, that's part of the craft, and it's not part of the Royal Arts or anything like that. And you could never become a master without going through the degree of installed master.
Right. Well, again, we have it. It's a requirement, but for us, like I said, you get it when before you're elected junior warden. So you do have to have it, but it's earlier along the way. For you all, it's the night you're installed, whereas we do it a couple years before. Okay, I really appreciate all of my great panel. You had some excellent answers. This is great. I'm sorry, some of you put stuff in the chat, and I would have rather you say it openly so everybody can hear it, because the chat doesn't go to YouTube. Oh, if you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We appreciate it. I got to mention that this once, because this will be on YouTube here. Whenever I get off my ass and put it on YouTube, probably in a couple weeks. I think I'm about 3 behind now, so I need to get going on that. Do any of our other guests today, any of our other members, want to ask a question, then something I didn't cover? Any comments on Australian masonry? Here's your chance.
You're commenting about how you open your degrees, your lodge, your meetings outside of the United States and parts of Canada. Almost everybody works in the first degree unless they're conferring a degree.
Right.
And in the District of Columbia, Grand Lodge, a number of years ago, they made a rule that the master could open his lodge stated on any of the 3 degrees he wanted or needed to. If he had EAs or fellowcrafts, well,
right,
he opened on them so they could attend.
Interesting. But could they vote?
No.
Okay, but they can
Until
attend.
you're a master mason.
Right. I think there's value in that, but I guess the idea that we want to encourage them to hurry up and get to the Master Mason's degree is probably why we're doing it the way we do.
My feeling is that if you can't attend lodge until you're a master mason, then it's the incentive for the lodge to pass them and raise them. While
yes,
if you can start attending lodge right away, then the lodge says, "Oh well, the heck with it. We can take our dang time about passing and raising them." So
exactly.
I don't know, but you don't want to.
Oh, but the other side of that coin is that you can use their attendance as a guide to their eagerness.
Right.
So if you're always open in the first degree, how often is that apprentice going to turn up? If they don't turn up, well, you kind of go, well, you're not that interested. You're not turning up.
I like to think you should be showing the lodge that you're interested, that you want to be there. Now, I will say this, going back to the Italian lodge that I mentioned, I wish I could remember the name of it. I don't know if I have it written down anywhere. This is before email and all of that. There are times when I wish that we had email and the internet years and years and years ago when I was traveling overseas, because it would have made life a lot easier. They met in the entered apprentice degree for all their meetings. You could be an entered apprentice for several years before you get the fellowcraft or the master mason. And you can actually serve as master of your lodge. You could be an EA and in theory be master of your lodge, but not be a master mason yet. And that to me is like, but I would think at a minimum, if you're going to be an officer, you got to be a master mason. Like we have the catechisms I mentioned. We have a master mason's catechism in Virginia. There is nothing requiring in a master mason to bother, and I'll say bother, learning his master's catechism. But I tell them, look, you just spent 3 months, 6 months learning this. Master Masons isn't much harder than the fellowcraft. You've already gotten through 2. You might as well continue while you're on this pace of constantly working to get your Master Masons out of the way, because it's going to come easier to you now than putting it off. You get a nice little certificate from the Grand Lodge, but that's it. Now, my lodge, if you haven't got your Master Mason's catechism, we're not going to make you an officer. And honestly, if you're going to learn the degree work, you might as well knock out the Master Mason's Catechism because that's half the degree work right there. So I guess each lodge has their own way of encouraging the new Mason to learn his Master's Catechism. But literally, yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking if you're going to be master of your lodge and you go to the trouble of learning the Warden certificate, you've done everything in the Master's Catechism. You have no excuse not to go ahead and knock out that catechism before you're master. But that's my take. Other questions? Anyone or any other comments? This has been really great. I love this. Go ahead.
What would
Brandon.
be the biggest difference between American Mason and Masonry and Australian Masonry from your brief look at it this morning? What do you think it would be?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Has so many things. I don't know. I was focused on the questions.
Oh, well.
I think I'd have to go back and relook at it, but there are not a huge number of differences, not like I've seen elsewhere. Honestly, I think you're not that different from England as far as I think of like appended bodies and things like that, because in my mind, being a Mason, you're only in the Blue Lodge by itself for a time, and you owe it to yourself to join the other bodies. So I think kind of the way you structure your appended bodies seems like quite a bit of difference. But if you're a purist and say only the Blue Lodge, I guess it's the idea if you meet on the first degree. I don't know. I'll still focus on the questions. I don't retain all the answers. I have to go watch the film again to give a good answer myself. But in a lot of ways, you're very similar, I have to say. The dress is similar, number of officers. I guess one big thing that I think is different is you only elect certain people. You don't elect your grandmaster. That's a huge difference from us. I like the idea of electing the grand officers. I think I have problems with the progressive line, but it's so entrenched, I don't see that going away. But you have a progressive line too, but you literally don't get elected master. That's it. You only get elected master. You get appointed. So, but again, as a on the ground, real world, Brendan, it's like the master nominates his junior deacon. There was a time back in the 80s when I joined that you were required to have 2 nominees for Grand Junior Deacon at Grand Lodge, and you were required to have 2 nominees in each lodge for Junior Deacon. You had to nominate someone. And it was a joke. I remember running for Junior Deacon, and I'd been active in my lodge, and I was a steward, and I did everything, and they nominated some other guy opposed to me. I'm like, this is a slap in the face to me. You know, it's like, I put in the work. I didn't realize it was required. Thankfully, they got rid of that. But pretty much, as far as a real world, what happens for real is the master picks his junior deacon, and that's it. It's up to the master to pick his officers. We have the progressive line. He only has to fill the junior deacon spot. And there is almost never a challenge from the floor, because in most Blue Lodges, you're fighting to find a junior deacon. You're looking at your we just initiated Paul and Lynn's this year. So Paul showed up for more meetings. We're going to stick him as junior deacon, whether he likes it or not. And that's the reality is you join a lodge here and you're going to be junior deacon within a year, because we only do a 1 year in office. You got 5 elected offices, not counting the secretary treasurer, because they're multi-year. And so many lodges, and I think Ocean View falls under Charles T. Morton fell under this problem. You bring in your newly raised guy, and he's going to be junior deacon within 6 months or a year.
Not even 6 months. I was raised in October, and I was elected junior deacon in December.
It all depends on when you join. I say less than 12, we'll say. And I think, honestly, if a lodge is at the point where their biggest concern is who's going to be junior deacon next year, you don't have time to do Masonic education or officer training or anything. You're only focused on getting and the progressive line only is useful in a big lodge where you have 3 or 4 candidates who would be a good junior deacon, and you fight for it. I mean, you literally, okay, well, Paul's been at every meeting, but Lynn's has already memorized several ritual parts. You know, who do we pick to be junior? You make it where it should be a competition. I think you should be earning the right to be junior deacon and lead your lodge. And a big lodge has the luxury, if you will, of finding the best candidate. A small lodge, because you have to roll through all the chairs every year, you got to find 5 guys every year who are willing to be officers. And I think that's what's really hurting us is this progressive line idea. But I mean,
this has been all very good. I enjoyed all of it, but I'm gonna have to tell you all, wish you all a good night, and our Australian brothers a good morning. And
thank you.
I'll hope to see you some other time. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thanks,
I
Robert.
appreciate you
Bye,
attending.
Robert.
Yes. So
I think
I don't.
I think
It-
it's I think
Go ahead.
it's interesting you say that, but from where we sit, we sort of look at the Masters. When he goes in, he selects his team apart from what Richard was saying. The three officers that are elected,
Right.
because he wants his people around him, the people he can trust to perform, to turn up, to do the ritual correctly, to do all that from time to time. That's why we appoint, or the master appoints, rather than you guys elect all of your officers.
And
'Cause then
just
you
to be
get-
clear, it is implied it's progressive, but your new master could pick 4 brand new guys off the floor.
Yep.
Or he could say, I'm gonna take the junior warden and keep him where he is till he's good, and maybe move him down to junior deacon, or you can pretty much shuffle the whole board every election, every year.
And of course, the secretary is for life.
Well, yes. Yeah, once you're secretary, now what's funny is typically, I guess I should ask this earlier, like, well, but you said that Tyler is elected, right?
It's because he's paid.
Is he typically a past master?
He
should
doesn't
be.
even have to be a member of the lodge.
Oh, okay.
He should
Well-
be, yes, but he doesn't have to be. He can be a master mason.
It is, I'll say in Virginia, it is quite rare to have a Tyler who is not a past master. But we do have, Pete will remember, John LeClaire, our career Tyler. You remember him?
Yeah.
John LeClaire was a member of, I think, Ruth or Atlantic, one of the lodges at the big temple at Granby. He was Tyler of at least 4 lodges. Right. And Roy T. Gregory, who was our Scottish Rite Tyler, he's the same boat. He's never been master of a lodge, and he's been Tyler for a number of lodges, and he's Tyler for the Royal Arch, he's Tyler for the Scottish Rite. He likes being Tyler, I guess. But
Yeah,
typically,
we have some of those. They're
you have career
Tylers
Tylers.
for 20 lodges or something. They'll
Typically,
turn up and go, what, you're here as well?
yeah, typically you go out like an Ocean View, you go out as master and you're Tyler for a year. I told him no. I said, pick someone else. And that kind of upset them. But it's like, I'm not interested in being Tyler. But that's just me. I'd rather be in the meeting. I'm there to be in the meeting. But typically you rotate out as master and you're Tyler for a year. So our immediate past master, his job is Tyler. But that's Ocean View.
Yeah. Now, is your Tyler required to stay outside?
Well, we open the meeting and he
Yeah,
gets to
'cause-
watch everything but the degree work or the ballot. Yes.
Yeah, because once we open up the door and the Tyler sits in the door so he can hear everything going on.
Correct. Yes. We do the same. Most lodges do that, except
Yeah.
when you ballot and except when you have degree work or like the catechism. Anything is ritual, he has to shut the door. But yes, we try to
Once
include
the
the
door
Tyler.
is closed, it's closed.
Now they say that's something I could have asked. So yeah, you do not invite in the Tyler. We have actually a specific ritual that says to allow the Tyler to tile from without and watch
Yeah.
the meeting.
You
You
tell
can-
Tyler, close the outer door, open up the inner door and tile from without.
Right.
Now you can invite him in if you've got a guest speaker or something, but for the rest of the time, the Tyler is outside because he's a paid employee.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
most Tylers aren't a member of your lodge.
Oh, I wanted to say hello to Dennis D, who joined after we started. Good to have you with us, brother.
Yeah, hi. I'm actually Northern Virginia Cherrydale member, and I'm enjoying this conversation because I'm maybe going to be joining a lodge in Germany. So wanted to get insight on lodges outside the U.S.
Outstanding. Outstanding.
But what I found fascinating is that you guys have a lot of it isn't as open as here in the U.S. that people wear paraphernalia for masonry on cars and rings and shirts and everywhere. And when you go to like Europe or it sounds like over there as well that it's just more low key. So.
Well, having said that, a couple of weeks ago, a friend and I were walking through a car park, and a guy was getting in his car, and he had the Compass and Set Square on the back of it. So we stopped and chatted. He got excluded from his lodge years ago, and we chatted to him, and he's rejoined his lodge.
Oh, outstanding. Way to go, Brendan, bringing him back in the fold. That's great.
He obviously must have been thinking about it because he's got this great big square and compass on the back of his car.
Now, this is just my observation. Now, early on in my career, I did a lot of time. I waited tables and all that. I found I would go up to people when I was waiting tables. If I see someone who has a ring, I go up and say hello. Virtually every Mason I ever met in public who's wearing a square and compass has not been to his lodge in at least 5 years. But they wear the ring everywhere, and they wear it in public. I almost never wear my rings out in public unless it's a formal occasion like a dinner. I'll make sure I put them up, and I don't wear them every day. I type, I'm a developer, so I'm on my computer all day. The rings are heavy when you type, so I don't wear them. I only wear them to go to the lodge or something else. But the men I meet who wear a ring all the time, they want to be a member of the lodge. They want to say they're a Mason. They want to wear that ring, and they never go. And this is so funny. And I'm like, well, why don't you go to lodge? Oh, well, So it's like they want to have the ring. They want to say they're a Mason, but they're not active in the lodge. And you have to allow for a certain percentage of our membership who pay the dues and wear their rings. And, they know they're a Mason, but I don't know. I'd love it if every Mason was active. We had that question here a couple months ago, I think. I asked the question to the group. I still got to put that on YouTube by itself because that was a really good discussion. It's like, would you rather belong to a lodge that had 30 Masons and all Masons attended every meeting, or a lodge that had 200 Masons and only 20 attended? And everybody here in the chat said, I would rather be a small lodge where everyone was active. And that's very interesting. But most lodges take the pragmatic view is, well, I got 180 guys who pay dues who never show up, and they're paying for the 20 who do to enjoy it. So it's necessary. But I think a lodge would get more done if they had 20, 30 members who were there at every meeting. And maybe you charge more in dues, but everybody there is willing to pay it. It's the guy who never shows up who says, I can't pay $150 a year. That's too much. Guys are willing to quit over $10 a month a year. So anyone else have any questions or any more comments? We just hit 10 o'clock on the East Coast. It's let's see, let me see if I can do the math here. It's either 10 or 11 or noon in Australia. Am I correct?
It's 12 o'clock here, noon in Victoria and New South Wales, and 11:30 in South Australia with Richard.
Okay.
We have a half-hour time zone.
Right. Weirdos.
One of them.
So we get to have a drink a bit earlier.
That's true. Well, I applaud Graham because Graham shows up for regularly at our meetings and it's 1 a.m. and I admire his tenacity of leaving the pub at 1:45 and getting home to get on his computer and attend our meetings. But he's been a regular.
I do that.
I really appreciate all of you on my panel. This was really good. You all did an excellent job defending the faith here and telling us about Australia. Brendan and I talked a bit when he had his talk here a month or so ago about the early history of Victoria. And that's what inspired me to make my next panel about Australia, because I got about 20 of you all on my mailing list, and I got 4 of you to show up, so that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. I wanted enough to have a good panel, and y'all did an excellent job. So this was a lot of fun. I want to do more of these panels because it's fun to give us a view into what it's like. And if you're watching, by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. But all of you watching here, or if you're watching us on YouTube, we have, I think this is the 4th or 5th panel discussion I've had with other Masons in other countries. And I'm going to keep having them. I think it's a lot of fun kind of exploring the differences and the similarities. I'm surprised that you all are very similar. Pretty much what you do is identical to what we do or what they do in England. I think pretty much covers what you all are doing there. So some other grand jurisdictions have been way different. Brazil was way different in how they approach things. But you guys are not that dissimilar from us, I would say.
There are differences, but they're not major. Most of us have got rid of a lot of the stuff you have in the, various degrees, like beehives and other emblems we don't have anymore.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Like you have that wonderful charge on the 5 senses. We don't have that.
Oh, really? Oh. Well, it's pretty much in the lectures. I mean, to be honest, if you take the average Mason who doesn't go to degrees a lot, you could show him all the emblems of Masonry, and he probably couldn't tell you what degree they belong to. But unless you're going to lodge and hearing the lecture, you honestly don't get to hear about the beehive or the 5 steps or pot of incense or
all of that, the dagger pointing to the heart.
Yeah, all of that stuff. It's in the degrees, it's in the lectures, but it's not anywhere else. And in the research lodge, I will say this to give props to those of us who give research papers. We write papers about the beehive and other things and explore what they mean and all like that. Because a lot of times, if you don't bother to hear the lectures, you don't know about this symbolism. We're not talking about it. We're talking about the working tools. And you know what the working tools are in each degree, but you don't know all these other emblems that are only in the lectures because they don't get brought up in a regular meeting.
I had to join Athelstan to get all those other bits.
Yeah.
The Order of Athelstan covers all of those bits that we've left out.
Excellent. All right. Well, brothers, it's just after 10.
Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you all very much. Anybody have any parting words before we close out? I want to.
Yeah, I just said it in the chat. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this session. It's very informative. I really enjoyed the diversity of the conversation and the question and answer format. And I think it'd be a great YouTube to review. So take care.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. I can't minimize Zoom, so let me just, it's yelling at me because I was trying to minimize Zoom. Let me, come on, cooperate. I was going to mention our other man.
You've gone dark. This is what happens when lodges go dark.
Oh no, there we are.
There he is.
Sorry, let me.
Candle.
It won't let you. I'm trying not to minimize. Let me do this. There. Okay. Again, it's my laptop. My laptop isn't cooperating. Okay. Rosicrucianism, Rosicrucianism and Freemasonry. 2 weeks from now. Or no. Well, yeah. No, almost a month. Okay, I'm wrong. What am I missing? May 13th. I'm sorry. Well, anyway, May 27th will be Rosicrucianism and Freemasonry. Brother, let me read my thing here. That is, I'm not cooperating. Well, here, give me 1 second. And it's not showing me my information. Okay, we have Brother Liss, who is going to be our guest speaker. He will be speaking of Rosicrucianism and Freemasonry. And for some reason, it's not letting me read the notes of from my meeting. But, here we go. So what are Freemasons and where do they come from? So what are Rosicrucians and where do they come from? Are these two bodies related to their origins and how? Brother Alastair Lees will be he'll be answering these questions and more, speaking about Rosicrucianism and Freemasonry. So that's on the 27th.
An Englishman.
Yes.
He's an Englishman.
And I'm looking forward to that. And on May 13th, and I don't know why, but I do not have an event yet thought I did. I'm going to Facebook and reading my events coming up, and it's not listed there. So if you give me 1 second, I will tell you May 13th is our next talk in 2 weeks. And let me see if I can bring it up another place. Yes, a Kabbalist, there it is. Brother Rodney McGilvary will be speaking on May 13th about a Kabbalistic interpretation of Freemasonry. I think this is the second or third Kabbalah-related talk we've had in our Zoom meetings. So, interesting things coming up in the coming weeks. Yes, so those are our next two coming up after this one. So I hope you all will come back and attend. If you're here for the first time, I appreciate it. And we normally meet on Saturday mornings. I didn't know if I was going to get more or less attendees being on a Friday, but it seems like we got the same number. So I don't know. I try to be accommodating because not everybody can attend on a Saturday and the time zone differences. But this worked out real well. I'm glad we had at least 13, 14 people here for our panel. So this is a good turnout. Thank you all once again. Thank you everybody for attending. My panelists, I appreciate it. And it's been a lot of fun, and we'll have another panel discussion soon. So I'm going to go and sign off. You brothers have a wonderful day in Australia. Enjoy your Saturday, and we'll enjoy the rest of our evening here on the East Coast. Y'all take care
Thanks,
now.
Christopher.
Okay.
Thanks, Christopher.
Bye-bye.